Has Dawn of X and Hickman's run on X-Men actually turned out to be a bit of a bait and switch? Now, several months into what was a pretty stellar initial kickoff of this event, people are starting to ask some questions. So let's talk about where this thing has gone. Hey there, this is Perch. It's been an interesting ride, and it really highlights how fast things can change, positively and negatively. Jonathan Hickman's X series, the House of X Powers of 10 that came out, took the world by a bit of surprise. And part of why it did that is that expectations for a new Marvel series were fairly low. We'd just seen an X Men reboot, say, about 9 months earlier. Fans were understandably a bit salty over the fact that the series was getting restarted, relaunched again. And there was a lot of goodwill that Marvel had given up in this last 4 or 5 years around book relaunches and bold new directions, and kind of the threat of this is the most important X-Men moment in more than a decade. This is one of the biggest things that's ever happened, going to turn the universe on ear, nothing will be the same again. That was the claim. And unfortunately, that's a claim for every single event and almost every single comic that ever comes out. So nobody believed it. So when House of X Powers of 10 came out, there was really strong art, there was good characterization, and it showed the X-Men being important. I think there's been a lot of people who've gone back and forth about the resurrection thing and are the X-Men acting like villains more than heroes and all the rest. But it treated the X-Men seriously as important characters who weren't doing Joss Whedonism type quips, and they were a threat. They were presenting themselves like a threat. And people responded very positively to big name characters taking themselves seriously. Go figure. So the series wore on, and there was some initial detractors. A couple of the big YouTubers on the first issue was like, "Oh, more trash Marvel," and they were angry. But then by the third or fourth or fifth issue, it was clear that the sentiment of the audience had turned, and people were into this book. And again, why they were into this book was not anything particularly surprising. They were into the book because the book was taken seriously. The book was taken like a big deal. And it really highlighted the fact that a lot of books aren't taken as a big deal. If you look at the relaunch of Spider Man, Iron Man, Fantastic Four, and Avengers that came out recently from Marvel, one thing that's interesting to note is that Spider Man treated itself, definitely true to Spider Man, which is a more jokey character, but also it treated his book and what he was after as a serious big deal. Whereas Iron Man was going with talking cats and kind of silly meta humor, Fantastic Four as well was a lot of kind of insider, new reality who dis type comments from Invisible Woman, and Avengers was again taking itself a little bit more jokey with, hey, look, it's big dumb She-Hulk and she's making funny horny thoughts and all the, and what do you know? Spider-Man's the one that people have generally responded to the most positively, while the other three have sank in the sales and the charts. Not terribly surprising. Even Immortal Hulk had you look at how that series launched. It launched as a horror book, but more importantly, it launched as a serious book, and people responded. It did well. I don't think this is a very tough mystery to crack. You treat things seriously, people respond seriously. A plus, well, not A plus B. You can't add letters. 1 + 1 = 2. There you go. That makes more sense. But now here we are, several months in. We've had the House of X Powers of 10 have concluded. A lot of big praise for that series. We had the 6 issues launch. General praise for most of them. Most people liked Marauders, thought it was a decent book. People really liked X-Force. People liked Fallen Angels, although that was a bit more niche depending on kind of your view and what you liked. Excalibur was a bit of a mixed bag. Some people liked it, some people didn't. The adjectiveless X-Men was generally well received. The old person issue tended to bother people, but still, it was generally people liked it, just fine. And New Mutants was, the first issue brought a lot of classic faces back. People were happy. But then 2 things happened as these, well, 3 things, I guess, have kind of turned the tide a little bit. If anything, it feels like the Dawn of X books are almost climbing a hill now. And the reasons why are too much shipping all at once. There's been just too many books double shipped 2, sometimes 3 times a month. It's been too much too fast. Number two, they kind of shot themselves in the foot by going almost immediately into a Who Shot Professor X storyline, which should have been a big deal since Professor X is one of the key characters in kind of this whole resurrection plot. And they both had him shot and had it resolved within the course of about 30 days, maybe more, maybe 40 days. With all the double shipping, they just burned through what should have been a pretty big question mark around Krakoa and the threat right away. And then the last kind of problem that they had is we got to the wave two announcements of the Dawn of X books, and it wasn't just one or two; it was a ton. What was 6 books became 14 over the course of another 6 months. Some are limited series, some are temporary, some are we're thinking might be temporary. Nobody really knows. And the creators that were brought on the book are ones that have kind of a mixed bag of attention. So some of them, at least a couple, were part of the Age of X-Man storyline, which was just heavily panned, and it felt like that quality bar was slipping. So now, and then Marvel kind of threatens that come December there's going to be a huge X-Men event, and there's going to be more books leading up to it. And so you're looking at that going, there's a conceivable world where in 1 month we're going to get 20 plus X books, all in 1 month. And for a lot of people, even if they loved every single story coming out of it, there's a my wallet is screaming at me kind of mentality. I mean, again, I'm speculating. I have no evidence in hand that they're going to publish 20 books, but I think it's a fair assumption that by December, if we're at 14 now and we're hearing there will be more announced, a couple more. So okay, couple. Let's say that's 16. And then we're going to do an event, which means we're going to get a couple Alpha Omega style bookmark issues, maybe a couple tie-ins. So is it inconceivable to suggest that there will be 4 more books during the course of an event? I mean, if there were, that would be a reduction from what we're used to seeing. And then you can't get into a fact the double shipping and everything else. Yeah, I think it's realistic that we could be at 20 books in a month. And if we're at 20 books with an average price tag of $4.99, I mean, again, you do the math. 20 times 5, you're at $100 in a month for just X-Men titles. I mean, that seems like a lot. Now, granted, Jonathan Hickman came out and said, "Hey, nobody's has to buy all the issues." Which, yeah, okay. I mean, of course nobody has to buy any of the issues. That's kind of a obvious statement. And he's also, he didn't necessarily say it specifically in his comment, but he did make the comment of, we're writing these stories so you don't have to buy everything. And as I've said in another video, it is a decent, good strategy to have several different books of several different tastes that go on, and people will mix and match what they're particularly interested in. Nothing wrong with that. I think that's smart. But what's interesting about Dawn of X in general is that we went from this time last year. I mean, this time last year, we were just kind of getting going with the Age of X-Man, which seems like a very long time ago, doesn't it? So a year ago, we had Age of X-Man, and it was going poorly, almost from the very beginning. By the time we got to about March, April, it was like people were punching themselves in the head. These books are not selling at all. It felt absolutely like a disaster. And there was a lot of anger. Marvel screwing up X-Men. We had the main Uncanny X-Men title, which was just kind of randomly killing off people for no apparent reason, just out of nowhere, with very little kind of fanfare or emotion behind it. We were just murdering people. And then in late summer, we get to August. Suddenly, it's a renaissance. The X titles are amazing. This is the best thing Marvel's publishing right now. And people, including myself, are saying, God, can we get the rest of Marvel on this track? It's like, this is the blueprint for how you do comics. And now 6 months later, and people are going, they've killed the golden goose. They've screwed it up. This thing has gone sideways. The quality has dropped. And there's a lot of, I'm out. I'm not, I can't buy anymore. This is ridiculous. I don't know what's going on here. It's an amazing roller coaster over 12 months to go from kind of the lowest of the lows to probably the biggest high Marvel has had, universal praise for what Marvel has done, to today, which is not as low as we were during Age of X-Men, but still pretty low. I mean, the fall has been dramatic over the last just 45 days about this line. Part of which I think tipped when Brian Edward Hill announced that he was doing a hiatus because he had too many things going on. And then questions came up of saying, "Hey, wait a minute, why did we double ship all those Fallen Angels books? Then we could have had his run easily go out to May, and maybe there wouldn't have been a hiatus at all. But you burned through those issues quickly. What was the plan there?" Combined with all the new titles, threats of more titles, threats of a big event, and like I said, a lot of creators who kind of have the black mark, if you will, of writing during some very panned, very unfortunate books. And will they do better in this main universe under the guidance of Hickman? I mean, probably, and you hope so. You know, the overall premise itself of Age of X-Men just, at the end of the day, wasn't very good, and so maybe things get better. It's certainly possible. And not just possible. I think it's likely. The Leah Williams book, it's going to be better than Extremis. I'm quite confident it will be. But all the same, you've created an obstacle for yourself, and I cannot in my memory think of another time where we went from super everything going right. This is by far the best thing that Marvel has ever done to today. That is quite a whiplash, quite a roller coaster of what's going on. So now I guess I got to ask the question: where are you on the roller coaster? Or did you go through what I described? A lot of irritation with the X-Men books, and then some real happiness, and then are you still happy? Are you still along for the ride with what Hickman's doing and the X line, or have things soured for you? Where are you at in the grand scheme of things? Leave me a comment below. Anxious to hear your thoughts. Just, how does this journey impact you? And can you think of another time where a comic series or a creator went from kind of, the floor to the stratosphere and then back down again in the course of less than 12 months? I mean, if you think about where Age of X-Men was and the skepticism coming into House of X, that was in May. So you're talking 9 months of up and down, or sorry, down and up, and now, maybe not down, but definitely frustration. It's an interesting place to go. Leave me a comment below. Let me know what you think. Let me know where you fall on the whole spectrum. Let me know if any of this rings true to you. Like, subscribe if you don't mind. Always happy to have you subscribe. Always appreciate your presence, your thoughts, your comments. It means a lot to me. Follow me on Twitter at Comic Perch, and thanks for listening. So we've had a lot of talking in this comic. What do you think of comics that talk a lot?
They're not good.
Not good. You are not a Brian Michael Bendis fan. That's what I'm getting here right here.